to make it possible for him to have a proper life in which a spiritual life would, for example, be feasible. And what this involved was a condemnation of laissez-faire economics and of capitalism that was very generalized and diffuse, and that things ought to be different, things ought to be better.
The ICF organised so-called crusades to working-class districts up and down the country, expounding their vision of a world in which labour and capital were united in Christian fellowship, and where strikes didn't happen. Realising the value of a national hero like Woodbine Willie, the ICF made him their messenger. With his cassock and military cross, he soon became the main attraction, and the Crusades turned into a revival on a scale which hadn't been seen since the days of John Wesley.
They would saturate an area with lay missioners. They would arrive days before, weeks before in some cases. The local clergy would be mobilized. There would be street corner preaching. There would be huge packed out services. They made a very considerable stir.
But they were getting tens of thousands
of people overall, yes.
The legend of Woodbine Willie grew and grew.
It used to be said that if you advertised that Woodbine Willie was going to speak, he would fill any hall in the country. And he obviously had this tremendous facility. He was a very gifted and charismatic speaker.
But in the polarised political climate of the day, the Crusades came in for intense criticism from the right and from the left. To the right, the Reverend Geoffrey Studdert Kennedy appeared to be a dangerous socialist, preaching violent revolution in the provinces. To the left, his vision of workers and bosses pulling together made him appear nothing more than a lackey of the industrialists. In fact, Studdert Kennedy held a deeply traditional view of society. The politics of the ICF had more in common with One Nation Toryism, or One Nation Blairism if you like, than they ever did with Marxism or revolution.
There's a lot of confusion at the time between social concern and socialism. The church was very concerned about society, but it was not going in a socialist direction. There's in fact a nice incident when Woodbine Willie was summoned by the Archbishop and asked to explain how he responded on the one hand to the criticisms from the left and on the other to the criticisms from the right. And his immediate response was that, I've always preached against Marxism, I've preached against socialism, and I will step that up.
But there were some in the church who really did believe in revolution, and they had a secret weapon. The revival of Morris dancing in the Essex town of Thaxted is all thanks to one of the most radical clergymen of the 20th century, the Reverend Conrad Noel. Noel believed society could not be reformed without revolution, and embraced the pagan Morris dancing as a symbol of a communal way of life that had been lost. As rector of Thaxted, he concocted a rural socialist idyll, a heady mix of folk culture, Marxism and Catholic ritual, which continues to inspire left-wing vicars, including Thaxted's present rector.
A chap came a little while ago and he said to me, I believe there used to be a socialist priest here.
Yeah.
And I said, there still is, dear boy, there still is. But he wanted to take photographs of Conrad and this bust, which is just round the corner.
Right.
I'm told it's a likeness, and a very good likeness as well. You'll see it says, he loved justice and hated oppression. And that really was the sort of wellspring of his life. That's what gave him that great sort of socialist power and so on.
Conrad le Despencer Roden Noel, to give him his full name, was no horny-handed son of toil. He was the grandson of the Earl of Gainsborough. But his politics were genuine enough. He saw Christ as a revolutionary, and he was totally in favour of strikes. He said, "It is bad to break into a church and steal the crucifix from God's altar. It is worse to underpay God's poor." Noel's politics split the town. Amongst his keenest supporters in the 1920s were Mary Palmer and Dora Arnold.
A friend of mine were in the church porch. We were singing the red flag, and two old ladies came and said they were going to smack our faces. And she said, "You try it on," then she said. And then we started again. Oh dear, oh dear. People used to think we were Bolshes.
You were Bolshes?
Yeah, because we followed him, yes. Well, they used to say it as you went by, you know.
Occasionally you'd hear them say, "Oh,
She's a Bolshevik.
Conrad Noel's disciple.